Hello, welcome to greentv.com, and I am Betsy Rosenberg, host of the series Meet the Solutionaries. There are so many of you solutionaries out there, and the public needs to hear from you because why? Well, we're getting a little freaked out by what's going on with our extreme weather. I don't think I need to recap the latest hits. I'd like to introduce you to two wonderful, big as a big tree solutionaries. First, Catriona Glazebrook. We've known each other over many, many years, both from Marin County, where I used to live, and you've been doing eco-education in a big way, and you have not let up, just like I have not let up in trying to bring green consciousness and content to media airwaves. And Green TV is the outcome of the networks not quite being ready for prime time. We want to be 24/7 because what is more important and urgent than how we're going to save ourselves, right? The planet will be all right. So that's Catriona. And David Millark, I am so pleased to meet you, honored really. You are the co-founder of Archangel Ancient Tree Archives, and you are doing some big things with little people. So we're going to hear all about that. And this is in conjunction, this interview, with Call to Earth Day, something that CNN, I'm very pleased to see, is sponsoring. So we're going to talk about what that is and how you're participating. But of course, it goes way beyond that in terms of what you're doing, your work and work that needs to be done. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to
Pleasure to be here.
So let's see, where shall we begin? Catriona, since you are my first point of contact, why don't you start with your work, Wellkind, you are the executive director there. You work with children, curriculums, I believe, that kind of eco-education. I'm the media end of it. So tell us about what got you started in this quickly, recap, and then we'll jump to David, a little bit of background, and then the amazing work that's going on right as we speak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, I've been working in the environmental field for almost 40 years now, and actually oversaw one of the nation's largest sanctuaries, over 600 miles. And my program helped the comeback of an endangered species. And I've always been incredibly a huge advocate for trees and nature and wildlife. And so a lot of the programs that we're working on now is a continuity of that, helping to preserve and protect trees and inform people about how important trees are to the planet, which I'll be pleased to tell you more about. And just thrilled to be here with my friend David, who is doing amazing things with some of the most ancient trees on the planet.
Wow. Okay, David, take it away. What is Archangel's Ancient Tree Archives?
Archangel Ancient Trees is this is our 25th anniversary this year, and for 25 years we've been traveling around the country and over in Europe, finding largest old them, and preserving their genetics. This has never been done.
Sorry, I'm just interrupting because you're freezing up. I'll stop the recording because I don't want to have waited this long to meet you to not hear you.
I'm David Millark, and I'm the founder of Archangel Ancient Trees. And this is our 25th anniversary around this country, around the world, finding the largest, oldest living things on Earth, and that would be trees. And for the first time in the history of the world, we're climbing the trees, cloning the oldest, largest trees, and preserving their genetics and archival living libraries to be utilized for future reforestation projects.
Wow. And you're using children in some of these programs?
Well, we're using children in what we call tree school. We have a school where kids come in our classrooms with kids from 4th grade through university, and we teach them how to clone trees just like we do. And then they take it back to their classroom in domes, they grow them in the windowsills, they get bigger, then they go out and they plant them. And we found that method they really take ownership, not just for a few months, but for a life. And sometimes the children help bring that life together on planet Earth, grow it up, plant it out, and then they have to take care of it, water it for a year or two. That's their tree, don't you know? We figure if we marshal the school children and the children of the world, we'll probably get this planet reforested. That's the army that we're trying to utilize.
Okay, so we hope you're in every state in the United States, mostly United States. Where are you exactly physically?
We're in Traverse City, Michigan, way up in northern Michigan, but we're traveling to California here in about 2 weeks, and that's where CAT comes in. We're going to partner with Wellkind and join our efforts together, the best of what we have and the best of what Wellkind has, and we're doing projects together, and Kat can tell you more about that.
I'd love to hear about it. And then I do hope you're planning to expand beyond, because it's such a win-win-win, win for the trees, win for the kids, win for the atmosphere and planet.
Well, we have
All of us.
650, we have 650 schools in 8 countries asking for it right now.
Oh.
So it'll be going global here this as soon as we can get up to speed.
Clearly you need franchises to get out there.
One of our board members is an attorney from Washington, DC. He's flying in here in about an hour or two from Michigan, and we're going to spend 2 or 3 days going over curriculums, franchise, putting some wheels under this to get it out to the world.
So instead of a franchise, in this case, it's a franchise. Sorry, Pat.
I like the way your mind works.
You know, if I don't laugh, I'll cry all the time. So I just kind of myself. Thank you for laughing.
There's a lot of people like that on the planet right now.
You know, really, I gotta use what I got, and I've got a punny mind for better and worse. My family will tell you it's worse. Go ahead, Kat. Tell us about your work and what's coming up with David, and then a little bit about Call to Earth Day coming up November 3rd.
Of course, yeah. So our goal is to really shift the paradigm of how people see trees and understand trees and plants. Of course, plants created our oxygenated atmosphere. My ancient ancestors are Pictish, ancient Celtic, and my grandparents used to say, you know, the plants are the ancestors of humankind. And in many ways, that's so true, because they created an oxygenated atmosphere. And 55 billion years ago, when the planet was in a runaway greenhouse effect, like it's starting to get now, it was a plant called the zola that pumped out oxygen, absorbed carbon, and got the earth back in balance. So trees and plants could be our greatest natural allies in correcting the imbalance in our atmosphere. And they do amazing things, like how they affect the atmosphere, just the amount of water. The rainforest alone puts up 20 billion metric tons of water into the atmosphere. That's 500 times the biggest dam in the world, the biggest, it's like an invisible river. And so just educating people about that. And then we bring it all the way down to something that they can do in their own backyard, which first of all is in the spring. We ask people not to cut trees, not to do any major activity, because that's the worst time for plants. It's also the worst time for wildlife. And we also have really simple techniques that landowners can do right on their own land to help protect and preserve these amazing native trees and native plants on their land.
Redwood trees are all over Marin County, Northern California, and they're gorgeous. They're awe-inspiring. Near woods, for instance, they're look up and you just can't, you just know you must be looking all the way up to heaven. Just and how they got there is, you know, religious experience, if you will, whatever your religion is. You're back, David. I thought you went to plant a tree. We're just so tell us about how you're coming together to do some projects for Call to Earth, CNN's environmental awareness education program.
Well, like I said, this is our 25th anniversary at Archangel. And 12 years ago, I was challenged with trying to clone the largest and oldest redwoods alive on the planet. And also that led to cloning the 3,000 to 4,000 year old giant sequoias. And it was deemed impossible. The oldest sequoia ever cloned, U of C Berkeley, was 80 years old in the world. These trees are 3,000 to 4,000 years old. And so it started back then. The native range for coast redwoods is from the Oregon-California border down 500 miles to Big Sur. So we drove that, we walked it, we searched every inch of it for the 100 largest and oldest living coast redwoods in the world alive today, all on private property that had never been searched. And we found some amazing things, like the world believes that giant sequoias are the world's largest trees. They're not. We found stumps of coast redwoods 10 feet wider than General Sherman, the biggest sequoia that everybody thinks is the biggest tree on earth. So the problem was those were cut down 150 years ago, lost. Nobody even knew they grew that big. We brought them back to life. And some of them are offering small trees like that to the school children all throughout all of Northern California to reforest and replant the coast redwoods. Why? Because 97% of all coast reds have been cut down. They're dead. There's only 3% old growth coast redwoods left.
And
And
when were
that's-
most of those cut down, David? Recent years, relatively, or over all the years?
Over the last 100 years, there has been unchecked cutting. Even now, they're cutting old growth illegally coast redwoods in Northern California. A lot of them were cut by people, unscrupulous people that bought state and federal tracts of that, cut it down and sold it to the Japanese. And they have bought the redwood logs, growth logs, for pennies on the dollar, put them on barges, haul them over Japan, and sunk them in the harbors. They've been doing that for 30 or 40 years because they're tremendous value as they become more and more scarce. So they're sitting on huge reserves of York Coast redwoods in California, the old growth, that are sunken in the bays to be utilized when their value is through the moon because of their scarcity.
Wait, what did you say?
Yeah,
They're
so-
sinking, they're sinking in the harbor? I missed something. They're sinking trees in the harbor?
In the last 30 years, the state and federal forests have been sold, at auction. And large numbers of those trees were sold for pennies on the dollar to the Japanese who bought the logs, old growth logs, put them on barges, took them all the way over to Japan, sunk the old growth logs in salt water because they'll last forever. And as the value rises, because there's only 3% of the old growth left, they become so valuable that it's there's large tracts of redwoods that are on the bottom of the bays in other countries waiting to be utilized when their value skyrockets. So
Whew.
there's things like that, but that's the bad news. Here's the good news.
Please.
One giant sequoia, if we could get every student to plant one giant sequoia or one coast redwood, the giant sequoia at maturity weighs 1,200 tons. 400 tons of that is stored carbon. So that's 500 tons of stored carbon per tree, which would pay an entire carbon debt of the average human, all your clothing, your travel, your air, your gas, your food. It would pay your entire carbon debt for your lifetime, one giant sequoia planted. So we're making stats and facts of how to turn climate change around. And we're getting the tools in the hands of school children to plant these ancient trees and do just that. Trees that will last for 1,000, 2,000 years, and every day they'll be sequestering CO2 and breathing out oxygen. So we're giving the young people the tools to reforest the planet with trees, not just redwoods and sequoias, that'll last hundreds or thousands of years. Unlike the average replanted tree, the average lifespan of a tree planted in urban America today is 7 years. At 7 years, almost all the trees we've re-urbanized the planet with tree plantings will be dead.
Because
That's
why are they dying?
because they plant mostly non-native trees that are cultivars or clones of trees that are popular in the nursery industry that have a pretty red leaf or a pretty flower, or there's something that's very striking about them, but they were never chosen for longevity, disease resistance, being native to the area, things that allow the trees to feed the pollinators. Our urban forests we're creating today do not feed the pollinators. They don't feed the mammals in large part because they're pretty trees that most nurseries and most cities buy from the same nurseries. So we're educating young people, put native trees in, put trees in that'll last several hundred or several thousand years, not 7. Take care of the trees. And that's why we're collaborating with Wellkind, particularly collaborating with Wellkind.
It looks like you're not planting these trees from seedlings, that you're somehow cloning these giant sequoias and redwoods?
Yes, 12 years ago, we took on the challenge of trying to clone 1,000 to 3,000-year-old redwoods and sequoias. And everybody scoffed. It's never been done, it can't be done. Like 110 woman giving birth. It just won't work, you know. And so we said we've tried other species before, so we tried it. And I'm happy to say we were able to crack the code, and we have been able to clone thousands, tens of thousands of the world's largest and oldest coast redwoods and sequoias. And even though they're baby trees, they're only 18 inches tall. When the school children plant them, they're already 2,000 to 3,000 years old. Are that tree? They have the old growth genetics, which the other trees don't have.
Do these trees have to be planted in a certain place and a certain time of year? And why isn't this Stop the Press's news?
Well,
you've broken the
it has
code.
been. We've been fortunate enough to have 8 feature stories in the New York Times, full pages in the Science Times. They've sent out a 5-minute video on it. The BBC, we've gotten the front page. There's every media in the world wants stories about, do you rebuild old growth forests? And why is it important to use old growth? Now, answer that really quickly. Their genetic memory. An exact genetic clone of an old growth tree has in their DNA the entire genetic history of that tree. And that memory, they've been through fires. They've been through all of this. And as you plant these young trees with that memory, that encoding gets lit up, fired up. They remember how to do it. And we have great hopes that they'll be able to make it through this thing called climate change.
Now, is that only
Other
if they're in their
trees-
native areas? Or, I mean, they can't just be transplanted anywhere, right?
Oh, yes, we have coast redwoods and sequoias in 7 or 8 trees now. In fact, they grow better in Ireland right now, in New Zealand, and in Wales than they do in California, because they still have fog there. It's more to get rain. And probably the young people listening to this show, I hate to say this, the giant sequoias in California aren't going to make it. It's too hot, too dry for too long, and it's not going to change. It's only and they can't take the heat and the drought. So before they blink off the face of the earth, we're cloning the largest and oldest ones, genetics. We can multiply those out in the tens of millions if we need to reforest.
Fabulous. So Katrina, what are you planning to do with David and perhaps other organizations for Call to Earth Day coming up?
Yeah, so coming up at the end of October, we have a series of events. So we're going to be planting some of the redwoods at a local school, Martin Luther King Middle School. So we're really happy about that and getting the students involved and understanding what's happening and how these trees are ambassadors for what's happening on the planet. And then we're also having a fantastic field trip out to make the connection between the ocean and the land, the salmon and the trees. What a lot of people don't know is that trees are essential for marine health. Of course, anyone who fishes knows that you need trees along the stream side to keep the dissolved oxygen high so you can have healthy fish. And also what a lot of people may not know, which was discovered in Japan, is that when trees are near the coast and drop their leaves into the marine, into the ocean, there's certain chemicals within those leaves that are essential for marine life. So if they're not there on the coast, it affects our marine life. And then our salmon, a lot of people are not aware, which are pelagic, which means they go from the ocean to the inward streams within the US and around. They have even found samples of salmon that have gone upstream that have been utilized by the trees because they feed the soil. And that's a main message that we have, is that the land feeds the animals also feed the land. So we really have a very holistic view. And that's why when we do habitat management plans or help to advise just a regular landowner, property owner about what they can do on their land in a climate change world, we have the techniques. We don't look at what has been done. We look at what needs to be done now. So we come in with that holistic view with soil testing, looking at atmospheric conditions, looking at UV radiation, looking at the natives, and looking at wildlife populations. Because there's been such a huge decline in California, but throughout the US, in bird species. For example, we've lost 30% of our birds. That's huge in a very short amount of time. That means there's less bird guano on the forest soil. A lot of people may not think of that, but anyone who's done a garden knows you got to fertilize that garden. So along with the many other problems that trees face, which is climate change mainly, having a loss of biodiversity affects trees too. So we have to protect both at the same time, and that's what we help people do. So there's wonderful events that we have with David and Archangel Tree Archive is really hitting home for Call to Earth Day for CNN, for the many kids that'll be joining us. We have a lot of high school students. I think we're going to have 50 high school students on one of our field trips, and it's really hitting home the importance of trees, but also how everything is connected, interconnected. A tree is connected to a salmon is connected to a tree, and so forth.
And that's why it's not nice to fuel with Mother Nature, because we're pulling a string on the web and everything seems to be unraveling, right? And so
Yes,
education
exactly.
is so key, starting at a young age. We didn't get it growing up. I don't recall, getting in environmental studies as an option in college. Now it is, thank goodness.
Yes, it's really taken off, and our program for high school students really hits hard on the newest science that we have. So they're learning things they may never learn in school even. Our program was platformed by National Geographic as one of the best science programs for teens. And for example, and this is important for your audience to know, because often people say, Catriona, I believe in, global warming. I've seen the impact or climate change, but I'll talk to people and they say that's not happening. So the kinds of things that we educate people about is, did you know that there are 3 types of carbon isotopes? Did you know that only one of those isotopes is released by natural trees? And therefore they can actually tell the increase in industrial caused isotopes. So they can really, we have really dialed things in dramatically. We've got satellites up there looking at inside of forests to see how much water those are in those trees, and telling us these trees are really, really dry. So lots of good new science that we can use. And it's time now to try these innovative techniques to protect trees. And what David and Archangel are doing is so important, because these trees have been around for thousands and thousands of years. They've experienced different climate changes. They've experienced all kinds of things. So keeping them alive through their saplings is just fantastic.
So how do the young trees weather the lack of water?
They don't. The first 2 years they're just like a baby human or a baby mammal. So
They
I go out with people that go out with tree groups, a lot of those plant seedlings and walk away. The mortality rate is 95%. So that's one thing that we teach young people, we teach everybody, is that when you plant a tree, that's the fun part. Then the work part is making sure that tree stays moist through trickle irrigation or watering that tree once a week for the first 2 years in the dry season. If you're not willing, or you're not able to water those trees, don't bother planting them, because we can't count on rain anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And are you finding that people are following through?
Yes. They've planted enough seedlings with other tree groups that all die, that they're ready to say, well, we're ready to try something different.
Where are the trees being planted? Are they near neighborhoods and suburbs where kids or even their parents can go easily water, or are they way out in the forest that would be difficult once a week to get out to?
No, the children and the people want urban forestry trees. And so I would say that 60-70% of all the, I think it's 300,000 redwoods and sequoias we've produced so far are in show areas like Eden Project in Cornwall, England. It's probably the #1 place. Their students planted your redwoods and sequoias there. They're planted in New Zealand, but mostly in urban areas, because people want to be able to go see them. They want to touch them. They're magical trees, the redwoods.
And yet so many programs are saying we need to plant trees, but as you said, it depends on what trees are planted where, how they're tended. Otherwise, it is just a waste of time and energy, and seedlings or clonelings, whatever you call them, saplings.
True.
And we need to stop cutting trees. In fact, David was talking about, building an army of kids that understand trees and how to grow them and ecology. And it's a really apt term because right now there's kind of a war on trees because of fires. And
Mm.
we really address that too in our habitat management. And there's huge misinformation out there. We're trying to help bust the myth of what causes fires, what can stop fires. And trees are not our enemy. In fact, a lot of the tree cutting over just in California, they passed legislation to cut 1 million trees a year and put in new roads and things. We don't need that to happen. That's not actually going to stop our fires. There are direct things that people can do to harden their homes, have water tanks nearby and things like that. So that's a big part of the picture, is helping to shift people's understanding of how to care for these amazing beings. And keep in mind, these beings, these trees, these plants, they can be our greatest allies to help save our atmosphere. And we really need help right now.
Well, we're trying to help spread the word. That's what Green TV's mission is to educate, amplify, and scale with wonderful solutions with like what you're doing, both of you, and together even more powerful. Other viewers might be, well, I hope viewers were saying, how can we do this where I live? So how can they?
Simple. You go to our website, Archangel Trees. Just Google up Archangel Ancient Trees and you'll go to our website, and everything need to know about how to get a hold of your school. If you're in tree school, how do we get the trees for plantings or any type of environmental plantings? It's all on there. You'll see there's many photos or videos of our men going up to 3,000 or 4,000-year-old trees, climbing them. People like to see that. We have interviews up in the canopies, 250 feet up, because people want to see, well, what does it look like up there, 250 feet in the canopy of a 3,000-year-old spot? What animals live up there? What other trees and plants live up there? I mean, there's berry bushes up there, so we give them canopy tours. It's on our website. That would be the best way.
Wonderful. Now you need a new page for franchise.
And David and his team love to work with groups, school groups or community groups that want to plant trees, but use it as an educational moment, and then have these amazing trees on site for people to learn from and think about. For us, the way people can get involved is we help people. Again, we help property owners, landowners. We also have the great internship program for high school kids. Now it's entering its 20th year, actually. And so we work with high school kids. They get college certified too, because we have such a heavy science orientation, but also get those kids outdoors. But those are some of the ways that they can work with us. We also have webinars to help landowners know how to manage their land, their own backyards. Simple things. I mentioned the one simplest thing is don't do anything in the spring. That's really simple. Don't do any heavy machinery. Don't cut those trees. Don't disturb those birds and mammals. If you think about wildlife, how many different species raise their young in the spring? Just about everybody does that. So if you're not disturbing them, and we do need to start thinking differently, because our animals are disappearing and our trees are disappearing. We need to protect them, and then they'll protect us. They'll take care of us.
Something like 71% of all wildlife has disappeared. I mean, that just came out. That is hard to even absorb or imagine. And I'm sure it's going in the wrong direction.
By the way, 98% of all of our old growth forests in the United States have been cut down. There's only 2% old growth forests left in the United States. And we need those old growth forest genetics.
And not even talking about the rainforests, what's happening there.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the rainforest to really make an investment and make a big difference in the environment. You can do it right here in California, right here in the US. And one of my favorite projects that David and his team did recently, there was a magnificent tree called the waterfall tree. It was so beautiful. That was why it was called the waterfall tree. How tall was that, David? Like 300 feet or something?
It was 350 feet and it's 3,500-year-old sequoia, fifth largest tree on Earth.
Okay.
Huge tree. It got burnt. It got burnt in a fire. They did not protect it. And David went in, luckily they had captured some of the genetics of that tree. So that tree is still alive in these babies. That's a miracle. That's amazing. But
Wow.
I do want to say this 1.2 about, and this is related to fires. At a recent place, I will keep it unnamed because I don't want anyone to feel bad. So at a recent park, which had redwoods, but also had like a little bathroom, for guests, but a little teeny, bathroom. That was about it. The firefighters during a fire protected that bathroom and they ignored the old growth redwoods. I'm like, what? You can rebuild that bathroom in like 6 months, but that tree that's 3,000 years old, that's gone. For
And
how
I
many
wonder-
generations, David, in 3,000 years? How many human I can't do the math right now, but we're talking great, 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 great. Forget it.
So firefighters need to be educated, and I hate to think if that toilet paper in that bathroom was perhaps made from old growth trees. I mean, I hope we're not still doing that. What about paper products? What can people do if they don't want to be using 100% pure, wood, if you will, trees to dry their dishes? I'll talk about paper towels, not toilet paper.
They can vote with their wallet. The most important thing people can do is pull out your wallet, your credit cards, and vote with what you buy. That's the only way we can change this thing.
And that was
Easiest-
recycled content paper products, better yet to not use any paper products, reusable
Yeah.
towels, that kind of thing. That's critically important because as we speak, they're still cutting down trees to make more napkins. That's one of my pet
Yeah.
peeves. People who grab a handful of napkins, use a corner of one and then throw the rest away. And those are trees, and it took chlorine to bleach them white, and just the consciousness is so needing to be raised, right?
And toilet paper takes old growth forest pines up in Canada to make toilet paper.
We're supposed to be an intelligent species, really. And this is 2022. Have we not learned much?
Well, we need to educate, to be more intelligent on their purchases, their shopping power. They're going to produce what we buy. That's the way capitalism works. So the most powerful tool you have is your wallet. Vote
That's
with your
right.
wallet, but buy your products intelligent.
And I will say too, though, I do think at the policy level is important as well. And in fact, we just developed a policy briefing guide and training our young people in being citizen advocates to meet with legislators to ask them to stop cutting down those trees and pay more attention to home hardening and things that'll really protect those houses from fires. But while we are consumers and can vote with our dollar, we are subject to what corporations provide us and the prices that they provide us. So it's not all in our hands. It's a little bit in our hands, but we got to put some pressure on them too. Definitely.
You can find, recycled content, toilet paper, paper towels, napkins, but it's still a minority of the products there. It'll be 2 out of 12 non-recyclable, substances in the product, and that shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be much more expensive, and shouldn't. But thank you so much for enlightening us. Before we close, anything else you'd like to say, each of you, that I perhaps have not touched on?
I think it's a rare and a wonderful opportunity for all people with their children to have an organization like Wellkind in California. A lot of states don't have programs that are it's down to earth, elite, and make that many changes. I mean, you're very, very fortunate to have that. We're coming all the way from Michigan to participate with Wellkind, and anybody that's listening, check them out. I mean, there's cutting edge solutions to turn this climate change thing around, and you're very lucky to have them there in California.
Well, thank you, David. And by the way, David, there's a book about David called The Man Who Planted Trees. It's a fantastic book by a award-winning New York Times journalist who actually may be coming or may participate in some way in these events coming up. So it's a great partnership, and we're just thrilled to be working together. And that's what it takes. It takes many people coming together with a similar passion and vision to try and remedy what's happening. And then it's possible. It is a solution. We can't be solutionaries when we work together.
Right. And that's why Green TV was born, because we saw a niche that wasn't being filled, kind of a green gap in news. And even a program once a week is not enough. We really want to be 24/7 because it's late in the game. Don't have to tell you to, and probably anyone watching. And there's so much to learn and there's so much to do. And if people go from kind of didn't really understand what was going on to, oh my God, well, yeah, it's too late. What's the point? Then we've lost everything, really. So we need to, right at this moment, I think, let people know so many exciting, wonderful, encouraging, inspiring things are going on, but not nearly enough. We need to clone it. And then, then we can talk, right?
Exactly.
Good one.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're all on the same page. Go forth and greenify. I love what you're doing. And please tell people about Green TV. We would like people to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're up to about 500 subscribers. We're kind of in beta mode where we haven't really done the outreach yet other than people we're interviewing. So hoping that you'll help us so that we can help you, mostly help, more people listening, watching to do their part, because it feels so good to be part of the solution, doesn't it?
We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat.
And it's sinking. Right. But we can turn it around, turn the ship around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
get
good.
that.
And thank you for having us on and for doing this work. And I hope to get out to Michigan at some point, maybe after all these events. Maybe you could come with me, Betsy, who knows? But David says that being in the midst of all of those trees is just such an amazing feeling and sight.
And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to being in Marin County in a couple of weeks and maybe meeting you, David, in person, and being
Yes.
nothing like the aroma of those trees in Northern California. I live in Texas and New York now, and it's got its beauty, but I miss that and hope to be back at some point. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Really, really, really encourage you to continue and expand. And we'll do our part here to let people know about your great work. It's so important, and not just on Earth Day, but that's what we do here at Green TV. We shine a light on people like you every day, 365 days. At least that's what we're trying to get to. So thanks so much. You're really exciting
You're
solutions. Keep it up.
Thank you.
And that does
It's an honor.
Meet the Solutionaries. Glad you've met these two wonderful people, and we'll see you next time on greentv.com.